45. Brown, 45. Hot, 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 hot.
You are listening to Any Given Sunday, Australia.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia podcast, the number one podcast in at least 3 households, 1 studio, American Football Australia head office, NFL Australia head office, the Prokick head office, and not just the head office down in Geelong, because joining us now is a veteran of the punting game. He's been a student, a player, and he's now a coach of the discipline. He's a Ray Guy winner over in Memphis, number 43 for the Tigers, Mr. Tom Hornsey. How are you, mate?
Good, Tommy. Thanks for having me on, mate. Appreciate it.
Mate, my pleasure. You've given up a time. You're not a fresh dad. You're a new dad for the third time. So appreciate you giving up some time in between naps.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, the little one's down, so we've got some time, hopefully.
We'll just keep it nice and quiet in the background just so they stay down. And
the headphones are on.
I can't speak highly enough of how good naps are. So we won't wake the little one, but we appreciate you giving up your time, mate, and we'll get straight into it. We just had a quick chat about this one. The most famous person in your phone. I like to start with this question just to get a bit of an idea of what you're like and you know the kind of life you've lived. And some of the names you've reeled off already, I definitely know who they are. Some people might not, but you've got quite a busy phone. Yeah,
I wasn't really sure which way to go on this one. Like, should I keep it Australian-based or head back over to America? But I think like the number one for me, and it's probably current, would be like Rich Bisaccia, so special teams coach for Green Bay Packers, and the assistant head coach. But he was my special teams coach when I was at the Cowboys. So yeah, he's sitting in my contacts, and then just a couple other boys I've played with. So Bobby McCain, cornerback, and then also Jake Elliott, so the Philadelphia kicker. He's holder at Memphis. He went to Memphis as well. So yeah, don't use them that often, but they're still sitting in there.
I like you. You obviously know the podcast well. Me being a Packers fan, Rich, Jake Elliott, an Eagles, Danny Boy on our podcast. He's an Eagles fan, so you know the podcast well. I do have a question about Rich. With his time the last few years before the Packers, he was at the Raiders, and they couldn't speak highly enough of how good of a coach and a team man he was. Was he the same over in Memphis?
100%. So he was at Dallas. Yeah, 100%. He was
Dallas. Apologies.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. I had such a good relationship with him, and that's the thing. He's a real player's coach. All the little things, he has little quirks that he brings into his meetings, and how he goes about it was really like instructional, but also hard and fair. So you kind of always knew where you sat, but he also had this kind of like compassion towards everybody going through the journey. And that wasn't just even for the special teams players. That was across the whole board. If whoever walked into the facility loved Rich Bisaccia, like he was that type of coach. So he wasn't just to the guys that he coached in special teams. It was across the board. So he would run meetings. They knew that he would, get the players on board. So like I was actually pretty disheartened when like Raiders did, because he was like a temporary coach, and I was trying to follow that along, and they didn't end up giving him the head coach role the following year. And I thought that was a bit of a missed opportunity for the Raiders organisation, because I knew how good he was. So it's a good one for Green Bay to get him, and he's great. Like we had Dan Bailey at the Cowboys at that time, and he was breaking the record for the most consecutive field goals or the highest percentage or whatever it was. And a lot of that credit is to the preparation that Coach Bisaccia put into the players and made everyone feel ready to perform. So yeah, he's a good one.
Don't want to jump forward too far with the questions. We'll definitely get to the coaching side of things, but listening to the way you speak about Rich, and I'm sure you've got other coaches and stuff like that over the time. Now that you're a coach, do you kind of bring the little bits of each different coach into your coaching? You want your players and your crew to love you as much as you love them?
Yeah, for sure. Like I keep thinking back, and I've been doing this a lot lately, actually, like looking back on all the coaches I did have and the messages that they were delivering, how they went about things, player management, all that type of stuff. And I think the thing with me, I'm always trying to improve and grow in that space. So the more I look back on it, and even just talking now, just thinking about the things that Coach Bisaccia did, just brings up more things that I'm trying to implement into the way I go about it. So yeah, they've all had big influences, even like my coaches in college. They're the elite of the elite. Like, they're so good, and they're good at what they do. And they've had a lot of practice and a lot of time probably cutting their teeth through high school football or being graduate assistants or whatever it might be to then get into that position. So yeah, I'm looking back on, I've got like notebooks and that I've had through the Cowboys, and then some stuff from Memphis that you look back on and think of the messages that they were delivering and how they went about it. yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff. So yeah, for sure, I'm pretty fortunate that I was able to go through that and kind of learn a little bit from them.
All right, let's take it right back to the start. You were born and bred in Geelong, a pretty big AFL town, is it? You know, growing up in the household, was it always AFL, or did you a bit of cross sports?
It was always AFL. That was the number one, especially coming from my dad, and I have an older brother. AFL when the Geelong Cats we used to always go to the games, and that was the number one sport. We did play cricket like in the off season. When I say off season, the summer season, we always played cricket, and when it was cricket season, that was huge. Like that was the only thing. We'd be watching the Ashes and all that type of stuff, or the Boxing Day Test. So yeah, there was two things. If it was winter sport, it was football. If it was summer, it was cricket. So yeah, that was from a real young age, growing up, kicking the football, and yeah, that was the dream to go to the AFL.
You were pretty good. What kind of player were you? Obviously, I read that you made it into the Geelong Cats VFL squad, which is huge,
Yep.
especially growing up following them. So what kind of player were you? Obviously, you weren't too bad.
Yeah, in my mind, I probably thought I was better than I actually was. But no, I thought I was going to make it. I thought I was going to be the next AFL guy. But I went through, Falcons. So I was representative through, that was TAC Cup back then. So I was in the TSA Cup. I was like a centre half back, full back. So played majority of my time there. And that's where I continued going through to the VFL. I was probably, to be honest, I feel like I could read the game really well, and I felt like I had that type of the skill set, like the kicking and all that. Obviously, the kicking, I kind of proved that one, but it was my speed, my athleticism probably let me down a fair bit. Looking back on it, like just my turn of speed and my agility to get to a ball probably hindered me there. And I was probably also unfortunate. My first year at Geelong, I badly did my shoulder, which was a blessing in disguise because it turned into punting. But yeah, did my shoulder, and that kind of ruined those hopes, the recovery and everything, getting back to that. I felt like going through the recovery, I could get back to the standard, but by the time it got back to the playing of it, I feel like I'd probably burnt myself out with football and the injury and everything. But yeah, I thought I was a good footballer. I honestly thought I was going to make it. Had a good first, my 17 year, my under 17s time at Falcons. I thought I thought this was it. I could do it. But yeah, there's other plans. So
was it the shoulder injury that kind of ended things and brought Prokick into play?
Yeah, it was. Because I would have kept pursuing, because I thought I was having a really good season with the Geelong VFL. Had a really good preseason. Lee Tudor was the coach. We got along really well, and then did the shoulder in a preseason game. That was pretty much the slow decline of me playing football at that stage, and yeah, that really turned in. I got a letter from Nate Chappie, like generally on the back end of my recovery. I think it was going into the next year. I just got a letter in the mail, just to try punting. I had no idea about what it was. Didn't think it was real, to be honest, at the start. I remember driving up to Chappie's training. It was John Smith was there as well for the first time, and had no idea what was going on, and just went out and kicked the ball, and so that was the I guess the pathway.
You were one of the original pro kickers because they started in 2007. Yep. What year did you go through pro kick?
So I joined in 2009. So there was really, from what I remember, and I'm a bit hazy on the time frames because I think that was really just beginning. So there was a little crop before me that went over the year before I did, and then I feel like I was really on the second wave of. When I say second wave, it was me, and I think another one. I think another boy went to AA school potentially, but it was a pretty small operation back in those days. A lot of the training was just me and Chappie for like 5 hours at a time for 5 days, and then he was living in Queensland at that time, so he'd be back and forth. So it was a little bit of a different program to what it is now, but I think I was truly the second wave going through.
Did you know much about the NFL back then? You know, obviously we had Geelong, we had Benny Graham who'd gone over in those kind of times. Did you know heaps about it, or was it really fresh when you get this letter from some random bloke about come kick a ball?
I was absolutely clueless. So, I knew obviously Ben Graham was actually one of my, growing up, I idolised Ben Graham as well, but that was at AFL in Geelong. But with him going to NFL, that kind of brought it a bit more onto the radar, but I still had no idea. Like, I think the only thing I really knew about NFL was I remember watching one clip of I think it was The Simpsons. They had like a Thanksgiving game or something on it. I remember that back in the day. Like that was probably the only thing I knew, but I actually knew not a lick of football. Like didn't know what downs were, didn't know any rules, like the whole lot. Just knew that, like, I didn't even know punting was a thing, to be honest. Like, other than being Graham, I didn't actually know what it was. I knew he kicked the ball, but yeah. So until I got into it, and yeah, even when I went over to Memphis, my first year, I had no real idea, but it's made it happen, I think.
So going over 2010, you made it over to Memphis after 5 hours a day of training and learning rules and kicking the pigs in. How did you find that whole college system? Because again, going from training 5 hours a day to adding in school, adding in film and things like that. And I might be wrong, but did you start straight away?
Yeah, I started my first year. Yeah.
So you've got no idea, in your own words, and then you've gone straight over into starting.
Yeah. So I think it was a blessing in disguise in some way that I was so naive on what college football was. So going over there was a big culture shock, but I was on this adventure. Like, it was a big culture shock in terms of going to Memphis, a little bit different to Geelong, Australia. So, but the benefit of is that going into a football team, you have another 120 guys that are instantaneously your mates, and they can look after you and they guide you through kind of that first transition period. So I was really fortunate on that side to have those mates in the team. But yeah, didn't know a lick of football, so still didn't know. I was in meetings and I was in everything, and they're going through their playbooks and all the things, and I was just sitting there like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, and even I still remember this day, my first practice, like, they just tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Yeah, it's your turn to go out and punt." And I was generally, I don't know what I was packing myself, and it was
say whatever you want, mate. It's all good.
So I was shitting myself, and then the ball got snapped and I kicked it, and fortunately the first punt I did was good, and then it was a roller coaster up until the first game. To be honest, I didn't think I was going to get selected because I was really up and down. But yeah, first game was Mississippi State. At Mississippi State, it was a whiteout, full crowd, like another 10,000 outside. It was packed, and it was really my first taste. And again, they just told me, like, it's fourth down, go out. That was me watching the football. So it was a bit of a whirlwind, but yeah, it worked out for the best.
So going over there, you're jumping into education. Prokick always talk about how big education really is for this program. It's not just about kicking the footy. It's all about, progressing yourself and things like that. What did you actually study, and how did you find the time to get in there and study? Yeah,
so I studied exercise sports science. So that was my my bachelor's degree. And 100% correct. The schooling side of things, and I remember my dad saying that at the very start because he wanted me to try to go to university in Australia. I had a spot which I deferred, fortunately, and then it made me be able to be eligible for Memphis. But yeah, the schooling side of things is super important. It's true to this day. Like, you lean back more on your education, your bachelor's degree that you do get, more than you will your football career. So it was really important to get, super important to get. But they try to fit it in, especially in the system when you're in like a college system. They know that your schedule is so hectic and you've got so many practices and training and lifting and everything, and then film and meetings and all these type of things, that they cut out these times for tutors and for study hall and all these type of things to make sure that your schooling is at the forefront and that you are getting through it and you're staying academically eligible. So they do a lot of work on that side of things to make sure that it is manageable. So I was really fortunate in that side of things, that you're kind of playing professional sport, but also getting your education, which you can always fall back on. So yeah, it's kind of the best of both worlds. It is tough. Like, it is tough to manage. There's long days and there's times where you're sitting in class and you're generally falling asleep. Like, it's because you've been up early lifting and you've done that for the last 5 days straight. But yeah, it's manageable, and it's what college football is. It's what college is. So yeah, it was a good experience.
Those that are big listeners of the podcast understand that. Like, we just spoke with one of your boys, Cade Reynoldson, who I was messaging him at 5 a.m. his time, and that's when he was sorting out times to come and chat with me. So, and that was getting up and doing a lift. So, like you said, it's not easy, but it obviously works out because you've come back home. You're a teacher now. You've obviously used what you've used over there to live your life, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've learned back on it a lot. So even before, I did my master's in teaching, and this was only about 3 years ago. I finished that, but prior to that, I was doing strength and conditioning through a couple of schools, and then I even did a summer over in America before I came back. So yeah, it's been such a bigger ticket really than the football side of things.
So you say you went over there and you had no idea within 4 years, you're winning the Ray Guy Award, which, again, those who listen, you're the best punter in college football, not just in your team, like in the whole college football. Unfortunately, it means you probably punted a fair bit in the last season, which is not ideal for the team, but obviously great for you. How did it feel to be recognised in that kind of space as the best of what you do?
Yeah, it was a huge honour, to be honest. Like, so to go through my 4 years, in terms of punting a lot, I had the NCAA record for my first 2 years. I think I punted 80 something times in the first year, then 95 in the second year. So I really cut my teeth in those years. So I got so much experience, so much practice, and it was really the turning of Memphis football. So Memphis football was a struggling program, really. It's Division One. It's really big football. There's a lot of funding and everything, but in terms of performance on field, we were struggling, and we didn't win many games. Coach changed after my second year, going into my third and fourth. We got this new coach in, Coach Fuente, who's like we were speaking before about coaches. He was a big influence on me, and he went about it the really right way. And it was really the turning of the football program. But unfortunately, I didn't get to really taste much of that. It was virtually the year after I left that would end up going to bowl games and having this really big run of success, which still continues now. But so I didn't get the on-field like team success, which I'm looking back on. I'm still it's not bitter, but it's like I would have really searched for that to have that, like the bowl games and the success as a team. But to be honoured for what I was able to do individually, it was a really, really huge honour, and especially for Ray Guy. He was at the ceremony, got to meet him and got to spend a fair bit of time with him, which was really special. So yeah, it's something I always look back on now, and sometimes can't believe that I actually did it and that it happened. But pretty proud of the efforts that I put in to get myself to that spot to be able to win it. So yeah,
it's incredible to go from 2009, you had no idea what the game was, to 5 years later you win in the top award in college. So it just shows you put the time in, you're going to get places in this world. Have you been able to go back and actually watch a game now that you are, like you said, they're a bit more successful?
Oh, I haven't. I stay in contact with a few boys that are still around Memphis and everything, but I haven't been able to get back. I started the family back over here, so I've got 3 under 5, so it makes it a little bit challenging. With Prokick, though, with Geelong side of things, I am looking to go over there and not just visit Memphis, but kind of do that coaches tour and build those connections a bit more with myself. So I look to do that in the future. But yeah, I've got such a soft spot for Memphis. I really can't wait to get back there and again meet all my old mates and that are still in Memphis and go to a game and everything and get to view it from the outside. But yeah, it still sits pretty strong with me, the kind of the Memphis town.
You do see that with most players, that they very much hold a special spot for their college.
Yeah.
You went through, you were undrafted, but those that know the game, that's not unusual for a punter to put his hand up and not quite get picked, but afterwards you get to go and speak, and then you get to pick who you want to go to, which is even better.
Exactly, yeah.
How did you find that pre-draft, though, putting your hand up and making yourself eligible for the draft and going out there and putting yourself out there for all these scouts to see?
Yeah, it was pretty much a carbon copy of going into college football. I was a bit unsure of how it all worked and how it went. So getting an agent, all those little things on the outside and what the preparation, I was invited to the combine, so the preparation going into the combine and completing that, and then doing your pro day and all these things and talking to scouts, all these things leading up to draft. Like it was a pretty new experience for me. And I'm sure it would be for a lot of the guys going through it. But yeah, it just felt a little bit, it was a challenge going through that, like trying to find what I need to do, what I need to say. So that was the beginning of, and choosing the right agent and all those type of things, which looking back on it, could have done a few things different in order to get drafted, I would say, but to be quite honest. But then, I think I was also fortunate that I had the ability to then choose where I'd not being drafted, because initially I thought potentially Chicago. So who took Pat O'Donnell in the 5th? That was, I think I got the phone call. I was in my graduation actually. I got the phone call to say that Chicago are going to potentially pick you in the 5th round. So I got that phone call, waiting for it, and for whatever reason, they went with Pat O'Donnell. They changed that play, and so then went through the rest of it and came out the back end, and then was able to select a few things and choose a little bit more of my own path. But so it was it was a challenging experience, but it was also good to go through. It's pretty cool being scouted from all the NFL teams, going to the combine, all those type of things. I still look back on those experiences and think how special it was.
Do you remember what was your 40 time at the combine?
Yeah, I didn't do my 40 times. So I actually got told, I asked about that. I said, look, and even like the bench press test and all those type of things. I said, like, oh, does that, like, am I required to do that? And the scout said, if you run your 40 time, you'll see everybody in the stands, or in the, you see every scout in the stands take it as an opportunity to go to the bathroom.
Oh,
Like, because like they don't care. Like my job is not to run. My job is not to be an athlete. It was more just to punt. So all the punting side of things, when we got to showcase our punting, that was the big thing. And if I had to guess what my 40 time would have been, because I never really ran one, it would probably been +5, I would say. Yeah.
you'd be a big Tom Brady running down there looking like a
Yeah.
big sloth. But
Yeah.
you did say that you're I'm presuming with all the lifts and training, your strength and conditioning got a little bit better than
It did.
Geelong Falcons days.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. And that's the thing. When I think I was in the middle of Memphis, I was like, oh, it'd be a really good time now to go back and play football, because I'd been in the weight room and been doing all this type of stuff that got me more conditioned. But yeah, they honestly said, like, it's generally you can do it. You can do the 40 if you want, but it's not gonna
They're going to the bathroom.
It's not gonna sway. Yeah, it's not gonna sway us anyway. So yeah, get your punting. And yeah, the combine itself, like the insights of the combine, it's 3 days of stress and torture, really. But it seems cool. But it's yeah, you're up at 4 a.m, doing drug tests and doing psychological tests and all these different things that people probably don't see. For you to at the very end of the whole 3 days, then you punt. So you kind of just you're exhausted. But they do that to test you a little bit. But yeah, no, it was a good experience.
So you got to pick places to go, and you got to try out in mini camps at New York Jets, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh. So 3 very different climates and very different places. But you ended up signing with Dallas after you did a camp, got cut, but went back and signed with them, and actually got to play a couple of preseason games, which I imagine was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a dream come true, really. Like, I would have loved to take that next step, to be honest. And in my first year with, like, from New York to, and I don't want to speak poorly of New York, but New York, when I was at the mini camp there, it was just such a different environment to Dallas. I'm not sure if it's because it's a northern thing and then going back to the south, like if there was that kind of thing, and me being from the south with Memphis, if that was maybe more to do with it. But yeah, getting into the Cowboys and the organization, like, it's Jerry's world. It's unbelievable, some of the things that they put on for you and that you have access to and all these different stuff. So it was really a game changer in what the NFL could be and what it is. So yeah, I had such a good time. We did our camp in California that year, and the year after when I was with them. So we did California camp and then rolled into preseason. And yeah, it was so cool. Like, there was so many things, like guest speakers and all these type of things that they do for you that I look back on now and think how fortunate I was to be able to go through it.
And you did pretty well. You had a couple of punts. So it was a 63-yard punt, which you'd be happy to take that every day of the week.
I had a really good first preseason. It was even in my exit meeting. Like, it came down to the last. I think I was in the last hours of cut line, and I generally thought I made it. I thought, like, I'd done enough to beat out Chris Jones. So I'd performed in my mind, and it was probably statistically performed better than Chris in that first year. And then for a few reasons, like, I wasn't the holder for Dan Bailey, which kind of detracted. And Chris did have a good preseason as well. And me just being a rookie, it wasn't meant to be. But I had such a good start, and I thought, look, I've done enough here to at least hold a spot down or get a spot somewhere else. So going through that period of time, I thought, this was something for me.
A little bit off cuff here, and probably a little bit deep, but you're a coach now, so you're going to get questions like this. In the fact that you said that you put in the effort, you thought you did well enough. How did that mentally go when, obviously it didn't go the way you wanted, but you did everything that you could, and obviously just come down to preferences and things like that? Would you? Yep. How did that go mentally, or would you rather go on, you know what, I played like shit and I didn't deserve it anyway?
That's a really good one. I was pretty proud of the fact that I did leave no stone unturned. So, like, I knew that there's like kind of two sides. I knew that I did everything possible. So the work that I put into going through, obviously, college into NFL, I left no stone unturned. So I was in a really good place mentally with punting, and I think when I did get cut, it was a hit to me, and I felt obviously pretty disappointed that I didn't get that opportunity at Dallas. But I also thought, moving from that mentally, I was pretty in a good spot to be like, okay, well, what's that next team? Because they've seen what I can do. I think I led the league in preseason that year, that preseason period of time. Like, well, surely I've got that next spot that's going to come about. So, yeah, that was probably the silver lining there. That I thought like that next opportunity was going to come. And yeah, so I was pretty on top of it in that respect.
So what was next from there? Obviously, we got cut in, I think it was September. It was the last lot of cuts to make the squad. So it's getting pretty deep into the year. What happened from there? You obviously hung around, or did you come back home?
Yeah, no, I hung around. So Coach Bisaccia was actually he'd been at San Diego prior, and there was a potential for a position there to come about, and for various reasons, it just didn't go my way. And I had a few, like you said, I've had a few different places I went to that season. Unfortunately, I keep, and John Smith will back me up on this one, and he always says I was probably the most unlucky punter going around for that period of time, because after all the work I'd done, the season of, was it 2014, there was no real poor performances in punting. Like, usually you get injuries, usually you get guys that are just not performing, but there was probably not enough of poor performances to make a change in rosters. I think there was maybe only one or two of that, from what I remember, that did make changes, but you have kind of these groupings of teams that, with your agent and with the kind of connections you have, and even with Coach Bisaccia, that if that team needs a punter, then you're probably a good first point of call for a workout. Where there's other teams that have different kind of little sections that they can pick from. So I just wasn't in the frame. So I think there was a team that made a change that I had never really had contact with, or they hadn't really seen me or scouted me as much as some other teams. So yeah, unfortunate in that space. So yeah, just didn't work out. So I had a few workouts, went to Tampa, there was Jacksonville, there's a few different ones that I did go to, and performed well, and just didn't quite break it into it, which is a bad thing. A lot of times what they do, not to waffle on a bit too much here, but they go for I actually started trying to kick left-footed, because I was like, a lot of teams bring guys in for workouts or put in practice squad because they're the left foot spiral, and because it spirals a different way. I was like, look, there's guys that are left-footed that I know I can pump better than, getting opportunities because they're left-footed, and the coach wants to bring them in so their returners can train off a left-footer. So I started generally working hard on, like, let's punt left-footed. Like, I'll have both sides, and then I can hopefully get an opportunity that way. But yeah, didn't quite get that either.
Well, I imagine that would have been a point of difference, though, surely, that you see a bloke show up and can kick right and then turn around and can kick left. Like, it opens up the field enormously.
You'd think so. You wouldn't believe this, but like the
Not
workout I had
the guts, but that's
the workout I had at Jacksonville. So he was actually the special teams coach. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he was at New York when I was there as well. I did the punting workout, and it was with probably 4 other punters. They're just trying because they wanted to bring somebody in, and beat everybody, like no joke, beat everybody on my right foot. And then he goes, and then we did some pooch punts, and then he goes, he got all the punters to stand around and watch me. He goes, I remember you can kick left-footed, like, show us you kick some left-footed. So I kicked a couple left-footeds, and they weren't like massive NFL balls. I probably over, I think it was a couple like a 4.3, 4.5, and I've actually got onto a couple that I've been working on it. And so I thought, like, this is great. And at the time, Jacksonville also had all my strength and conditioning coaches from Memphis at the place. So I knew, like, everybody in the facility. Like, I thought, this is good. Like, this is my next spot. Even the boy that ended up ultimately getting the position, I remember on the bus ride back, said, well done, mate. Like, you've had a good one there. And then for whatever reason, he got it. I just didn't get the call back. So, yeah, anyway, life moves on.
Yeah, it does. And shit, mate, if you would, surely they could use a 35-year-old punter nowadays. Like, they're falling left, right, and centre.
Yeah, my wife, like, I think it was 2 years ago, because I was doing this, and she's like, why don't you just try to go doing it again? But yeah, it takes a lot to be in that picture, to be in that kind of hanging on for workouts and that. It's not true, especially with having a family. It just
say with three under 5 now makes it a little bit harder.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to put them through that. So yeah, I feel like I could still do it, but it would take some training to get back there.
Well, you've come back home. You're a teacher. You've got your masters and things like that. How did Prokick come along? Like getting back involved with Chappie down and opening up Geelong to the Prokick community.
Yeah, it was. I think it was the back end of 2019. I contacted. Yeah, I just got back into contact with Chappie and said, "Look, I think there's a real opportunity to start like a little portion fraction of Prokick in Geelong. There's obviously we've had in the Geelong region, we've had a lot of guys come through, whether it be from St Joey's, like the school that I went to. I know there's a fair few. Like Cam Johnson's still in the league right now, so we've had a really good pool of players from this region. And I think it would be beneficial to and there's enough, I guess, enough of a pool to be able to create our own little program down here as well to assist that. So yeah, had these conversations with Chappie and went through a few things, and yeah, it all worked out well. And yeah, began pretty small, and there's a few boys that are already in the program that were training in Melbourne that were closer to Geelong anyway, or from Geelong, so they instantaneously were able to join into me. So I started off with a smaller bunch. I think it was like 6 to 8 to start off with, and then yeah, COVID hit, which probably in a lot of ways was pretty fortunate in the building of Geelong, because then those guys that realistically wouldn't have been able to go to Melbourne to train anyway could then still have a home back here. So really kind of formed it and yeah, built it a lot stronger through COVID to get that kind of that work done and still give these boys opportunities to go to college and have the training they needed to get there. So yeah, and from then it just kind of leaps and bounds. It kept pushing and kept building, and yeah, it's a bit of a oiled machine working through it.
I love that you're saying it was a smaller group with 6 and 7, and you started with you and Chappie 10 years earlier, just the two of you. What does a day in the life look like? Because like we said before, we're going to college. Punting doesn't always work out. There's only so many punting, like 32 spots in the world, really.
Yeah.
What is a day in the life of a coach for anyone who goes to college and thinks, you know what, I could turn my hand to coaching and make something of this?
As a college coach or something like
more of
now?
a Prokick down here. Yeah, what does your day in life look like?
Yeah, so for me, I have a full-time job with being a teacher. So yeah, from Monday to Friday, from 8 to it's really about 4 o'clock with meetings and that. I'll be in the classroom teaching and working through that side of things. So I'm at Western Heights, which is a sports school. I initially started through the academy, which was a football program for AFL football. So and still want to be in that space with kind of a specialized sport program at Western Heights that getting into. So yeah, that's my day-to-day job. But then I've structured training to be everything kind of around that. So for Prokick boys, and it also gives them a little bit of an opportunity to still have a working life and funding what they need to in order to get over to college. So from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, we're on the field on a Monday, Wednesday, and then a Saturday morning we do as well. So we do 2-hour sessions working through all the different types of punts and coaching, and then we do a gym session with everyone. So a gym session on the back end of that to get them in that. And then a lot of the other time spent for me is with Prokick is just conversations with Tim, John, Chappie about kind of where everyone's situated, what we're doing, what schools are open. And then, I'm trying to get more now into the space of generally recruiting with, even yesterday I was on the phone to some coaches and that, trying to recruit and work out spaces. So trying to get more into that side of things as well. So it's it can be pretty full, especially I'm also playing Australian football as well. So my other nights can be football training for myself. So as much as I can try to be around the boys as well, obviously on my family as well. So it can be pretty hectic, but on the Prokick side of things, that's what it kind of looks like with 3 sessions a week, 2 hours of punting, 1 hour of gym after it.
You beat me to it. I was going to throw in a little surprise. Obviously, at 35, you're getting on the back end of your career, but you've thrown the footy boots back on and then running around again. Yeah,
I love it actually. I tell a few people, I feel like I could still keep playing for another 10 years, but we'll see if that actually happens. I think the portion of time I spent, like I spoke earlier, like on the back end of my time at football when I was in the VFL and that, I was really burnt out from Australian football, like the running and everything. It was too much. And then having this portion of time, it was only 10 years of not playing, but also 10 years of not playing, not getting hit, but also being in a weight room and staying generally fit, kind of felt like when I've got back, I've kind of just picked up from being like 22 in a way. So I'm running around feeling like I'm that. So, I'm probably delusional. there's going to come to a time. But at the moment, I'm enjoying football. Still loving pre-season and loving doing that type of stuff. So hopefully I can hold on to that and keep getting a kick. I think, I'll know it when I'm not.
I think the wife will tell you first and foremost when you're grouching around on a Monday going, oh, I can't feel my legs.
Yeah.
How's the shoulder? Feeling all right?
Shoulder, I was really fortunate to have the proper rehab and everything going through that. So my left shoulder I have like a bolt in that. It was a full reconstruction, and I had an anchor and all that put into it. So it was a pretty good job that I did. So that's feeling fine. Like even coming back, it was stronger when I was back, because I played a couple of games back after the rehab of it all. So, and it was good to go. So I still tape it up, but it's probably more mental than anything. And she's good to go.
Last question about the coaching side of things. You just spoke about burning out. Like some of these kids, I'm sure, are getting up before school and doing things, and and then you got 2 or 3 hours after school as well. Like, how do you have anything in place for that burnout, like you said that you had? Because these kids, like, they're going to be starting 16, 17. It could be 10, 15 years of non-stop kind of grinding. Like, how do you help with that burnout kind of side of things?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's something we're still trying to manage and make sure we can do the best we can. It's especially with punting, so it's so individually focused, so specific in what you're trying to achieve. Like it's you catching and kicking a ball, so you can really go down the rabbit hole of diving everything into it and becomes really obsessive of this technique type thing. And if you're doing it year round, like if you're doing it like for our Prokick, like you're trying to gain a spot, so you're working each day to try to get a scholarship and try to get to college. It can be quite overwhelming, especially when you're putting in months after month. So a couple of things that I try to do is at least every now and then, like if it works in with the school holidays terms, is giving a break for the boys and make sure that they do get some time away from punting, because a lot of times that refresh it goes a long way to improving what they do, because they can step away from it and come back fresh. But then also I try to make training as fun as possible, and they probably think I just want to join in too, but like I'll do little things like doing little 7-on-7 games, or like little things that college football based, and keeps them in that kind of environment that you would have in a college facility, but trying to make it into this. So every now and again, just bring in a few different things and change it up to freshen them up and still make sure they're loving the game of football. It is a challenge. And it's something that I think we can't shy away from, because when they get into college, they are going to be doing that. And we can't kind of protect them over here and say like, oh, it's okay to have time off and do this. It's not that. You can't do that. So as much as we can build that tolerance and that endurance up to be able to work at their craft and go to school and all those different things and stay on task, I think the best we can do that, it's going to set them up for college. So yeah, it's really a management type thing.
Mate, I can't appreciate. Well, I don't. For you coming on and giving up your time. 3 kids, 1 2 weeks old. Like giving up such time to come on and have a chat. You've an incredible career. Actually, I knew you previously, like without knowing you through our affiliation with Prokick. But going back and reading about you, and learning today that you went from a nobody that couldn't even pick up a ball to winning a Ray Guy within 4 years is huge. So appreciate you coming on and giving up your time, mate. And I do love the fact that it took Cade Reynoldsson calling you out on the podcast to actually get you on. So appreciate and shout out to Cade.
Yeah.
One last question for you, mate. It's for anyone who's looking to get into this and thinking that this could be a path. How do we get a hold of you down in Geelong and getting down to that? And what advice would you give to any of those kids that are coming through?
Yeah. So the advice side of things, I think Kate kind of said this. There's never really a good time. Like it's one of those things that like you can always put it off. But I think you only have one opportunity to go to college and to start this and to do this. So if you even have a slightest inkling that I want to go to college, I want to be a punter or whatever it might be, I think you should just do it and take that lead. That's kind of what I did. Like I didn't know anything about it, and I just let's go for it. So it was a real big life changer for me. So I think it can be for everybody that does that. So if you're thinking about it, if you've got an interest in college football, if you want to have something new, a bit of an adventure, then just do it. Like I'm not gonna shout and scream at you if you can't do it on your first night. It's one of those ones where you can kind of test the waters. So yeah, I think give a give it a shot. To get a hold of me, like you can go through like social media. We also have like a website that you can connect through, which has a player info that you can put your stuff into. And then it's I try to be as accessible as possible with guys, and it can be word of mouth. It can be direct message on social media, whatever it might be, to get it in and get you down for a session. So yeah, I would encourage anybody that's thinking of it and wants to do it to just have a shot.
Mate, you're living proof of where you can go if you just throw your feet in the water and see what happens.
Sure.
So, again, appreciate you coming on, and good luck with the young family.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it. Appreciate it, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.